Cancer. There is a particular quality of strength that you have been building, and you may not have fully recognized that you have been building it. The strength does not look the way strength is usually depicted. It is not loud. It is not visible to people who do not pay close attention. It does not announce itself. The strength you have been building is the quiet kind, accumulated through small, consistent choices over a period during which the choices were not always rewarded. You have been showing up for yourself in conditions that did not always support the showing up. You have been maintaining your own standards in situations that did not always recognize the standards. You have been continuing to be yourself in a configuration that did not always make space for the fullness of who you are. The cumulative effect of all of this has been the construction of a foundation that you can now stand on with reliability. The reliability is significant. It is what allows you to be where you are, which is a place of unusual stability for someone who has lived through what you have lived through. I want to start with this acknowledgement because the rest of the reading is going to involve someone else, and I want the someone else to be properly contextualized. The someone else is real. They are having their own experiences in relation to you, but you are the central figure of your own life, and what is happening to them is a feature of the landscape of your life rather than the substance of it. The substance of your life is what you have been building. The building continues. The other person's process is happening on the periphery of the building, not at its center. That said, I want to describe what is happening with the other person, because the situation has its own significance and you deserve to know what is occurring. The other person is in a state of recognition. The recognition is comprehensive. They are coming to understand in ways that are still completing themselves what your presence in their life actually meant and what its absence has meant. The recognition is not entirely comfortable for them. It involves admitting things they have been resisting admitting. It involves revising their account of what occurred between you. It involves taking responsibility for choices they made or did not make. The work of the recognition is real work, and it is occupying significant interior space in this person right now. I want to be careful about how I describe their state, because I want to be accurate without amplifying any tone of satisfaction in their difficulty. They are not okay in the moment, in the sense that they are processing something significant and the processing is producing real feeling, but they are not in catastrophic distress. They are doing work that needed to be done. The work is uncomfortable. Uncomfortable work is sometimes the most valuable kind. They will be different on the other side of this work than they were before they began it. The difference will be in the direction of growth, even if the growth is occurring through experience of loss. I want to address what specifically they are recognizing. The first thing they are recognizing is the actual quality of who you are. While you were continuously available to them, they were calibrated to take you for granted. The calibration is a normal feature of how people relate to consistent presences in their lives. We do not always appreciate what is reliably there. When you stepped back, or when the configuration of your engagement with them changed, the calibration began to fail. The failure produced a clearer view of what you had been contributing. They are now seeing you with more accuracy than they saw you when you were available. The seeing is part of the recognition. The second thing they are recognizing is the impact you had on their daily existence. They are noticing the absence of specific things you used to do, specific moments you used to share, specific qualities of your attention that they had been receiving without registering as gifts. The absences are showing them what was actually present when you were there. The presence has become visible in retrospect through its negative space. This is one of the most common forms of belated recognition, and it is one of the most painful because the person is essentially learning in real time what they had access to and what their access has done. The third thing they are recognizing is something about themselves. The recognition of what they lost is also a recognition of what they did not see when they had the chance to see it. They are coming to understand that they have a tendency, perhaps, to undervalue things while they have them. that they have been operating with certain assumptions about how to engage with the people in their life that have not been serving them well, that they have, in some respects, been less attentive than they could have been. The self recognition is the deepest layer of what is occurring in them, and it has the most potential to produce lasting change. Whatever happens between you and them going forward, this layer of recognition will continue to shape their future relationships, possibly in ways that benefit people they have not yet met. I want to take a moment to address you because the reading is about them, but you are the one receiving this information, and your response to it is yours. There may be a part of you that feels a kind of vindication. The vindication is appropriate. You were not always treated in ways that matched your value, and the registration of your value in someone who did not adequately recognize it while they had the chance is a kind of belated acknowledgement that addresses something you have been carrying. Vindication is not vindictive. It is just the natural response to seeing reality assert itself in your favor. There may also be a part of you that feels something more complicated. Concern, perhaps? Sadness about the situation as a whole? Uncertainty about what to do with the information? All of these responses are valid. You are not required to feel any particular way about what is happening to this person. You can feel many things simultaneously, and the simultaneity is not a contradiction. It is just the texture of being a complex person responding to a complex situation. I want to address what I think is the most important question that this information raises. The question is not whether to engage with this person. The question is what you are building and how this information fits or does not fit into what you are building. Your life is the building. The other person's process is information, not a directive. You can receive the information without it requiring you to do anything specific. The information becomes one factor among many that you can consider as you continue to make the choices that are actually yours. I want to share something specific about what I am sensing in terms of what may unfold next. The other person, having reached this state of recognition, may attempt to communicate with you in some form. The communication may be tentative, it may be more substantial, it may be direct or indirect. I cannot tell you with certainty what form it will take. What I can tell you is that the impulse to communicate is forming, and the formation is moving toward externalization. When the externalization occurs, you will have a choice to make about how to respond. The choice is yours. You have the time and the space to make it thoughtfully. I want to share an orientation about how to think about the choice if it arrives. The choice is not between accepting and rejecting them. It is between several gradations of engagement. You can choose to ignore the communication entirely. You can choose to respond at the level of acknowledgement without further engagement. You can choose to engage in a conversation without committing to anything beyond the conversation. You can choose to explore whether something can be rebuilt while maintaining your own boundaries and pace. Each of these is a valid option. The right option depends on what you actually want, given your current life and your assessment of what would serve you going forward. I want to mention something about your current life because I sense that significant developments have been occurring in it that should inform any choice you make. You have been building. You have been growing. You have been forming relationships that are aligned with who you actually are, perhaps including relationships that were not available to you when you were energetically tied to the previous situation. The building is real, the growing is real. Any choice you make about how to engage with the other person should account for what you would be choosing to engage with or to set aside in order to do so. The accounting is important. The other person may want a reconnection that requires you to redirect attention away from what you have been building. Whether that redirection serves you depends on what specifically would be offered in the reconnection and what specifically would be set aside in order to make space for it. This is Cancer Tarot, and I want to share an observation about situations like this one. People who have undergone the kind of recognition the other person is undergoing sometimes assume that the recognition itself is sufficient justification for renewed engagement. The assumption is that having recognized what they had, they should be granted access to it again. The assumption is not always correct. Recognition is necessary but not sufficient. Renewed engagement requires not just recognition, but also demonstrated capacity to act differently from how they acted before. The demonstrated capacity takes time to establish. Words alone do not establish it. Sustained behavior over a meaningful period is what establishes it. So, if any reconnection were to occur, it would appropriately involve a period of observation during which you could assess whether the recognition has actually translated into changed behavior before committing to anything more substantial. I want to address something about your own state of strength as you consider all of this. You are not the same person you were when the previous configuration was active. You have, through the period of separation or distance, become someone who is more grounded in your own knowledge of who you are. The grounding is significant. It means that any reconnection, if it occurs, would be entering into a different relational dynamic than the original one. The other person would be encountering a person who is no longer available for the configuration that did not serve you. They would have to engage with the new version. Whether they can engage with the new version is a question that only experience can answer. They may rise to meet you, they may not be able to. Either way, you are not the one who has to adjust to make the engagement work. They are the one who has to adjust to meet you at the level you now stand at. I want to share a particular practice for the period of waiting and possible engagement. Continue to invest in what you are building. Do not pause your life to wait and see what happens with the other person. The pausing would betray the work you have done. The work has produced a life that is worth living, regardless of whether the other person rejoins it. So continue with the projects, the relationships, the developments that have been occupying you. The continuing is what makes you the person you have become. Any reconnection, if it occurs, will be entering into a life that is actively being lived. The actively lived life is the foundation. The foundation does not move to accommodate visitors. Visitors fit themselves into the foundation or they do not. I want to mention something about how the other person's recognition may affect their behavior beyond just communications with you. They may, in the course of their recognition, begin to make different choices in other dimensions of their life. The choices may produce visible changes in how they engage with the world. The changes may be observable to you if you encounter them directly or through mutual contacts. The visibility of the changes is information. You can use the information to inform your sense of whether the recognition is producing actual transformation or whether it is merely producing acute discomfort that may fade once the discomfort becomes manageable. Actual transformation tends to be visible across multiple dimensions of behavior. Acute discomfort tends to be visible primarily in their direct expressions toward you and to fade in other dimensions. Watch for the breadth of change, not just the intensity of communication. When you assess what is occurring, I want to take a moment to talk about your own future, separate from the question of this person. Your future is being built through the choices you are currently making. The choices are accumulating. The accumulation will produce, over the coming months and years, a life that is meaningfully different from the life you would have had if you had stayed in the previous configuration. The meaningful difference is in the direction of more alignment with who you actually are. The alignment will produce, in turn, more satisfaction, more clarity, more vitality. The future is good. The future does not depend on what this person does. The future is being secured by you through your own continuing work. I want to share something about a particular kind of new relationship that may become possible to you in the period ahead, partly because of how you have handled the previous situation. People who handle difficult relational situations with dignity tend to attract higher quality relationships in the future. The dignity is observed by others, sometimes in ways you cannot trace, and it produces an impression that travels with you into future contexts. You have been observed. The observations have included people whose regard is worth having. Their regard will affect what relationships become available to you. The available relationships will be of a different caliber than the relationships that were available when you were energetically tied to the previous situation. You can welcome the new caliber when it begins to appear. The welcoming is part of how the new conditions of your life unfold. I want to address a possible question. There may be a part of you that wonders whether you should let the other person know that you are aware of what they are going through, whether you should reach out to them given that you sense they are in difficulty. I want to address this. You are not obligated to manage their difficulty. They are doing their own work. The work is theirs to do. You're reaching out, particularly if it is motivated by concern for their state rather than by a clear sense of what you want for yourself, would not serve either of you. It would be a return to the dynamic in which you were the one supporting them through their interior struggles, which was part of what was unsustainable about the previous configuration. The new dynamic, if any new dynamic develops, needs to begin from a different starting point. The starting point is that they are responsible for their own work and you are responsible for yours. I want to share something about what may serve you most in this period. What may serve you most is a continued investment in your own equilibrium. The equilibrium is the foundation from which all your subsequent decisions will be made. If your equilibrium is shaken by what is occurring with the other person, the decisions you make in response will be reactive rather than considered. If your equilibrium is maintained, the decisions will be considered. Considered decisions produce outcomes you can stand by. So whatever you do, do not let what is happening with the other person disturb your equilibrium more than you can afford to have it disturbed. You can be aware of what is happening with them without making it the center of your attention. The peripheral awareness is enough. This is Cancer Tarot, and I want to share an emphasis on something that I think matters most in this situation. You did not do anything wrong. The departure or distancing that produced the current configuration was an appropriate response to what was occurring. The other person's current state is the result of choices they made or did not make in conditions where they could have chosen differently. The result is theirs. You are not responsible for their experience of it. You can have compassion for them as a human being undergoing difficulty without taking responsibility for the difficulty. The distinction matters. Compassion does not require ownership. You can feel for them while continuing to honor your own boundaries and your own continuing life. I want to mention something about how to maintain compassion without being pulled back into a previous dynamic. Compassion, when it is healthy, is offered from a position of fullness, not from a position of obligation. If you feel obligated to provide comfort or relief to the other person, the obligation is a sign that the previous dynamic is reasserting itself. The previous dynamic was structured around your providing things to them without commensurate return. The new configuration requires that pattern not to recur. So when compassion arises in you, allow it to be a feeling without converting it into an obligation. The feeling can pass through you without producing action. The not converting to action is the practice that prevents the old dynamic from reestablishing itself. I want to share an orientation about how to move through the next stretch of time. Move at your own pace. Continue what you have been continuing. Make decisions from clarity rather than from pressure. The pressure may come from various sources, including from your own feelings about what is happening with the other person. The pressure can be noticed without being obeyed. Noticing it does not require you to act on it. You can hold the pressure as information about what is being asked of you and then choose what you actually want to do separately from what is being asked. The separation between recognition of pressure and response to pressure is one of the practices of mature emotional life. You have developed this practice, you can rely on it. I want to address something about your sense of yourself during this period. You may have moments when you wonder whether you are being too distant, too unforgiving, too cold. The wondering may come from a part of you that is calibrated to provide support to people in distress. The wondering is understandable, but I want to gently suggest that the calibration may need to be updated. You are not being too distant. You are being appropriately responsive to a situation that requires the other person to do their own work. You are not being unforgiving. Forgiveness, where it is appropriate, can occur in its own time, on its own terms, without requiring you to take on responsibility for the other person's process. You are not being cold. You are being grounded, which looks like coldness only when contrasted with the previous pattern of overgiving. The grounding is healthier than the overgiving was. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the courage it has taken to be where you are. Maintaining your equilibrium when the other person is in obvious distress is not always easy. There is a pull to relieve their distress, particularly when you have been the relief in the past. Resisting the pull, in service of your own continuing development, is a form of courage. The courage may not be visible to anyone but you, but it is real. It is one of the qualities you have been developing throughout this period. The development is permanent. It will continue to serve you in future situations that require similar resilience. Here on Cancer Tarot, the closing emphasis I want to leave with you is this: the other person's process is real, and it is doing work in them that may benefit them in ways that extend beyond this situation. You are not responsible for their process. Your own process is what you are responsible for. And your own process has been unfolding in a direction that is producing meaningful good for you. The meaningful good will continue to unfold in its own time, regardless of what happens with this person. The unfolding is reliable. The reliability is what you can trust. Trust it. Continue the unfolding. The unfolding is yours. You have built strength. The strength is real. The strength does not depend on what the other person does, what they say, what they recognize, what they fail to recognize. The strength is structural to who you are now. You can carry it into every subsequent situation in your life. The carrying will produce, over time, a continuing improvement in the quality of your relational life, your professional life, your relationship to yourself. The improvement is gradual but reliable. It is the harvest of the work you have done. I want to mention one more thing about the larger context. Whatever happens with this specific person, your relational life as a whole is in a phase of upgrade. The upgrade is not contingent on this situation resolving in any particular way. It is contingent on you continuing to be who you have become in the context of your continuing life. The context will include new people, new opportunities, new possibilities for connection. Some of these will turn out to be more significant than this particular situation. The future contains depth that the past has not yet shown you. You are walking toward that depth. The walking is steady. The walking will arrive at the depth in its own time. You are loved by your own life. Your life has been arranging itself in your favor through the choices you have made and through the conditions you have allowed to clarify. The arrangement continues. The continuation will produce, in coming months, additional confirmations that you are on the right path. The confirmations may include developments with this person, or they may not. Either way, the confirmations will come. The path is the right one. You are walking it. Continue. The other person's process is theirs. Your process is yours. The two may converge at some point in a configuration that is workable for both of you. They may not converge. Either outcome is survivable. Either outcome leads forward. Either outcome contains its own kind of good. You are not at the mercy of which outcome occurs. You are the protagonist of your own life, with the agency to make the choices that determine the shape of your continuing existence. The agency is yours. Use it. The using is the practice. The practice is enough. Walk forward with the awareness that you have done significant work, that the work has produced real results, that the results will continue to compound, and that you are not alone in your continuing life. The aloneness that may have characterized parts of the previous period is ending. New connections are forming or will form. The forming is part of the natural movement of a life that has been freed from a constraining configuration. You are inside the freeing. The freeing will continue. Trust it. You are exactly where you need to be. You are exactly who you need to be. The strength you have built is permanent. The strength will continue to serve you. The serving is the gift. The gift is yours. The gift continues. Walk forward. The path is good. The future is good. The continuing is the entire practice. Practice it. The practice is enough.